Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for this special edition of Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs. Yesterday, a horrible maritime disaster occurred, and news of the accident spread quickly across the world. The Francis Scott Key Bridge in Maryland was struck by the container ship MV Dali, causing the bridge to collapse, and so far 6 deaths have been reported. First and foremost, I want to express my sincerest sympathy with the families of the victims, as well as everyone impacted by this tragedy. This is really a catastrophe for the people in the greater Baltimore area. While this is not a news podcast, I thought it appropriate to provide a summary of the accident and examine the backstories of both the ship and the bridge. This is a significant event in maritime history and will be remembered for many years to come. First, let's review the events of the accident as we understand them at this time. At 1:02 a.m. on Tuesday, March 26, 2024, the Singapore-flagged container ship MV Dali departed from the port of Baltimore, Maryland, destined for Colombo, Sri Lanka, carrying cargo from the Maersk Shipping Company. The ship was first guided by a port pilot with the assistance of tugs, and was handed over to 2 harbor pilots on the Patapsco River. At 1:24 a.m., the ship's lights were seen to flicker off and then on again. At 1:25, black smoke was seen billowing from the ship, and at 1:26 a.m., the ship began to veer off course slightly more to the southeast. The Dali was clearly losing power, and without power, a ship is unable to control the rudder to steer. The new course of the ship was on a collision course with the south pier of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Around this time, a mayday call was broadcasted from the Dali, warning of an imminent collision, and evidence indicates the ship's anchor was dropped. At 1:27 a.m., the Dali's lights flickered off and then on again, and moments later the ship struck the south pier of the bridge. The anchor was unable to stop the ship in time due to the sheer size and momentum of the Dali. The mayday call prompted a police officer to broadcast this message.
I need one of you guys on the south side, one of you guys on the north side, hold all traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching. It just lost their steering. So until you get that under control, we got to stop all traffic.
Officers then rushed to the scene and closed both entrances to the bridge.
Yeah, I'm en route to the south side. I'm holding traffic now. I was dragging, but we stopped prior to the bridge, so I'll have all outerly traffic stopped. 10-4. Is there a crew working on the bridge right now? Want me to stop traffic on this site right now? Yeah, if we can stop traffic, just make sure no one's on the bridge right now. I'm not sure where there's a crew up there. You might want to notify whoever the foreman is, see if we can get them off the bridge temporarily. 10-4. Once the other unit gets here, I'll ride up on the bridge. I have all interloop traffic stopped at this time. Once you get here, I'll go grab the workers on the Key Bridge and then stop the outer loop.
At 1:28 a.m., the MV Dali struck the south pier of the bridge, igniting a fire on the vessel. 38 seconds later, the 4-lane bridge broke into several sections and plunged into the Patapsco River. Another call was then heard on the police radio.
C-13 dispatch, the whole bridge just fell down. Start, everybody. The whole bridge just collapsed.
Simple dispatch is direct. That's correct. Do we know if all traffic was stopped?
I can't get to the other side, sir. The bridge is down. We're going to have to get somebody on the other side, the Anne Arundel County MSP, to get up here and stop traffic coming northbound on the Key Bridge.
C-13, I'm holding all traffic northbound.
8 construction workers of Bronner Builders were on the bridge at the time, fixing potholes in the road. Despite being able to close the bridge to traffic, there was not enough time to warn the workers to evacuate the bridge, and these 8 men fell into the river, along with the bridge. Divers from the United States Coast Guard quickly began search and rescue operations, and of the 8 men, 2 were rescued. The 6 other men are missing and are now presumed dead. Sonar evidence shows at least 2 vehicles fell into the river as well, although it has not been determined if the vehicles were occupied. No injuries to the 22 crew of the MV Dali have been reported. None of the ship's cargo fell into the river, and no fuel or oil leaks have been detected. The National Transportation Safety Board has begun its investigation with assistance from the United States Coast Guard. As this is still very early in the information gathering process, we just don't know much at this time regarding the cause of the Dali's power failure. Maryland Governor Wes Moore praised the Mayday call and the response by police, calling them heroes, and that they saved lives. It will be weeks, maybe months, before the NTSB releases its final report. Now let's take a quick look at the history of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The bridge was planned after the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel could no longer accommodate the escalating traffic demands in the area. Construction began in 1972 by Greiner Engineering Sciences, Inc., and completed in 1977 at a cost of $110 million. Originally referred to as the Outer Harbor Crossing, the bridge was officially named the Francis Scott Key Bridge, in honor of the man who wrote the words of the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States. Key was inspired when he viewed the American flag still flying at the nearby Fort McHenry during the War of 1812. The 1.6-mile-long bridge spans the Patapsco River from the inner harbor of Baltimore to the Chesapeake Bay and was the final link in the I-695 loop, or the Baltimore Beltway. The bridge spanned 180 feet above the water, had 4 lanes, 2 in each direction of traffic, and was separated by a concrete divider. It was hailed as a major milestone in Maryland's transportation planning by Preservation Maryland, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting historical sites, calling it a significant engineering accomplishment. The toll at its opening was 75 cents for passenger vehicles and 50 cents for trucks. State Secretary of Transportation Harry R. Hughes personally collected the first toll, and in just its first 11 hours, the bridge was crossed by 7,448 vehicles. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, it was the 3rd longest truss bridge in the world. The bridge crossed the river from Hawkins Point in Baltimore to Solars Point in Baltimore County. It was one of 3 crossings of the river along with the Harbor Tunnel and the Fort McHenry Tunnel. The Baltimore Sun wrote, "For the first time, motorists will also be offered a dramatic panorama, not only of the downtown skyline, but Fort McHenry, Canton, the Inner Harbor, the hills of Catonsville, Towson's high-rises, and the television tower near Druid Hill Park." In 2023, toll revenue from the bridge surpassed $56 million, according to the Maryland Transportation Authority. We'll turn our attention now to the history of the ship, the MV Dali. It was built in 2015 by the Korean Hyundai shipyard. It is a Neo-Panamax container ship, meaning it was built to the maximum size allowed for passage through the Panama Canal. It is 984 feet long, 157 feet wide, with a gross tonnage of 95,000 tons. The ship is owned by Grace Ocean Private Limited of Singapore, which itself is owned by Mitsui & Company of Japan, and was operated by Synergy Marine Group of Singapore, which manages over 660 vessels worldwide. At the time of the accident, the ship was carrying containers on behalf of Danish shipping giant Maersk. According to websites Vessel Finder and Shipwreck Log, the Dali accidentally hit a dock in the Belgian port of Antwerp shortly after being commissioned in 2016. Belgian authorities at that time inspected the ship and determined the Dali was safe and did not detain the vessel. According to Equasis, a public ship safety database, the MV Dali was cited on June 27, 2023 by authorities in Chile for a deficiency related to propulsion and auxiliary machinery. The report goes on to specifically identify problems with gauges and thermometers, but the ship was not detained by Chilean authorities. 3 months later, the ship was inspected by the United States Coast Guard in New York City, and no deficiencies were found. The Dali frequently travels between Asian ports and ports along the east coast of the United States. On March 13, 2024, the MV Dali passed through the Panama Canal and proceeded to New York, then Norfolk, and then Baltimore. The ship was carrying 4,700 containers of cargo from Maersk when it struck the bridge. The collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge has taken the lives of at least 6 people, and that itself is an immense tragedy. However, the collapse of the bridge has far-reaching economic impact for not only Baltimore, but across the United States. The Port of Baltimore is closed for the foreseeable future, and only time will tell how long it will take to remove the bridge from the waterway. The office of Maryland Governor Wes Moore reports, the Port of Baltimore handled a record 52.3 million tons of imported cargo in 2023, worth $80 billion, and directly provides over 15,000 jobs. Another 140,000 jobs are linked to the activities of the port. The Port of Baltimore is also number 1 in the U.S. for imports of automobiles and light trucks, roll-on, roll-off farm equipment, sugar, and gypsum, and overall the 9th busiest American port for foreign goods. The Francis Scott Key Bridge also allowed wide loads and the transport of hazardous materials, neither of which are permitted in the Harbor Tunnel or Fort McHenry Tunnel. As the bridge is part of the federal interstate highway system, President Joe Biden issued a statement saying, "We're going to work with our partners in Congress to make sure the state gets the support it needs. It's my intention that the federal government will pay for the entire cost of reconstructing that bridge, and I expect the Congress to support my effort. This is going to take some time. The people of Baltimore can count on us, though, to stick with them at every step of the way until the port is reopened and the bridge is rebuilt." Thank you for joining me for this special edition of Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs.